Sup, y'all? It's me. It's your boy Asmongold, and today I want to show you guys everything that you need to know for how to complete the Highlord's Return, which is the tank version of the challenge artifact appearance scenario that was added in patch 7.2 that's available whenever the Mage Tower is active in the Broken Shore. Each time that you attempt this is 100 nether shards beyond the first time. I can guarantee you guys you're not going to fucking one-shot it. I would recommend, realistically, at least 5,000 for 50 attempts, and for a lot of people, closer to 10,000 or even more than that. This scenario is the hardest out of basically all of them, and even for each different tank specialization, there is varying levels of difficulty. And what I mean by that is Prot paladins are just completely fucked. The bosses in here, and I think all the mobs even, they just pull the Inferno D3 on you, and they double the health on everything. I'm sorry, guys, but I don't know what to say. But for each different spec and class, it is a little bit different. Every single tanking specialization goes through this same scenario, but as I just mentioned with Prot paladins, it is much more difficult, and the mechanics are fundamentally different, especially like for Guardian Druids, the aura of decay that the Inquisitor has is I think it's a lot bigger, and also the eyes, I think they're immune to physical damage or something like that. So what that means is that if you're watching this and you're not a Prot warrior, you're going to understand the overarching strategy that I'm going to be using, but the individual tactics and how I'm going to be dealing with the different mechanics is going to be very different than it would be for you, because obviously I'm a completely different class with a completely different toolkit. That being said, here's what I'm going to do in this video. I'm going to show you guys everything that I'm taking into this fight. So my talents, my gear, my artifact weapon traits, basically everything that I'm going to be coming into this fight with. On top of that, then I'm going to look at all of the different mobs that we're going to be encountering and dealing with during the fights. I'm going to go over all of the mechanics that they're going to be doing and how to deal with them. Then I'm going to be showing you guys my overarching strategy and how I plan on dealing with the fight as a whole. And then I'm going to show you guys the attempts that I did where I actually completed the challenge. And I'm going to narrate basically my decision making and what I'm doing in real time, so you guys can see pretty much what I'm trying to do. Now, first thing I want to talk about is the legendaries that I'm going to be using. Now, in a perfect world, I would use the bracers and I would use the belt, the Thunder God's Vigor. I do not have Thunder God's Vigor, so instead of using the belt, I use Prydaz, and so I was using the bracers and Prydaz for extra survivability. I felt like it really helped me in phase 1, and I did lose out on a lot of damage, which is why the strategy that I'm going to be using is much more offensive than I see a lot of other people using, just because I'm missing out on so much extra damage because I don't have, I don't have booming, or not booming voice, but a demoralizing shout up as much, and I'm using it combined with booming voice, so it's a huge DPS loss for me to not have that belt. It's something like probably 10 to 15% more damage. So let's go ahead and look at our talents first. For talents, for the first row, we're going to have Shockwave. Second row, you probably want Impending Victory, even though I'm an idiot and I just had Inspiring Presence. Third row, you want Renewed Fury. Avatar is okay, but I feel like Renewed Fury, especially for how much you're going to need to use it, is going to give you the most damage over time. The 60 talent is going to be Bounding Stride. The reason I'm going to be using Bounding Stride instead of Crackling Thunder is because whenever I'm on the edge of the Aura of Decay that the Inquisitor casts, I can still hit him with Thunderclap and still keep damage on him. And the extra range and radius on Thunderclap was not very important, and Bounding Stride gives me a reduced cooldown on Heroic Leap, which allows me to get more out of the stomps, the nether stomps that Kruul does in phase 2, which is a huge amount of damage, and it allows me to try and negate those and avoid that damage as fast as possible, and I felt that was more important than having the extra radius. 75 talent, you want to go to Devastator. 90 talent, you want to go with Booming Voice, and your 100 talent, you want to go with Anger Management. It's pretty simple. Now, for my gear, I was about, I think, item level 908 or 910 or something like that. I would not recommend doing this with any item level that's below 900. I'm sure some people have completed it with below 900. Of course, there are some really great people. I'm a good tank, but honestly, this challenge is really, really fucking hard. There are people saying all over the place to nerf it, and in some regards, I can't really say I disagree, but this is not a discussion about should it be nerfed or not. I want to talk about actually the fight. So anyway, that's what I would really say. Try to at least have 905 or 910 item level. The trinkets that a lot of people are using is the Tichondrius trinket that gives you extra leech. For me personally, I was using the this Scorpion trinket, the one that does like the cleave burst damage, and that's going to allow me to kill the Nether Elementals very, very quickly inside my burst phase on top of the Inquisitor. And also on top of that, I just used another bullshit trinket. I think I used like Memento or something like that. I didn't have another good tank trinket, so I just tried to use whatever I had available. Now for my artifact weapon, it was itemable 923 at this point, and also it had all of the traits, all the new traits minus the spell reflection one. So I didn't even have the extra 20% magic damage reduction from spell reflect. I didn't even have that or the gold trait going into this. So I was at kind of a disadvantage with my artifact weapon. The food that I'm going to be using is bear tartare. Now, people might be a little bit confused, like, why are you using bear tartare? I mean, okay, you're moving fast, like, what does that matter? This is a DPS check, it's a lot of damage, a lot of survivability that you need. Why are you trying to move fast? The faster that I can move around in phase 1 and control the ads, the more control that I can have over those ads is basically the more control I can have over the fight. And in phase 2, it's going to allow me to, whenever I don't have heroic leap up, it's going to allow me to move out of those nether stomps even faster, to move over to Valen's healing orbs even faster, and to basically just have more control over the fight in general, be able to move out of the infernal smashes faster, everything like that. It just gives me a huge advantage in all of those things, and with how many ads are coming up and at the rate at which I'm killing them, bear tartare is up very often, and I would recommend it for pretty much anybody, any Prot warrior doing this, because of the extra control and quality of life that it adds, especially in phase 1, but also in phase 2, depending on what your RNG is with the nether stomps. So that's basically, and I also used the DPS flask. I didn't really worry about the rune, but make sure you have Drums of Fury, that's the heroism thing, to take it into phase 2. You want to save all of that for phase 2. Most of your wipes are going to be in phase 1, the odds are, and phase 2 is very, very difficult, but it's difficult in a completely different way. So the different ads that you're going to be dealing with, there's 2 phases to this fight. The first phase is with the Inquisitor, and the second phase is with Highlord Kruul. Now, the Inquisitor summons a number of different ads. It summons these eyes that do a little beam and it connects to you. And whenever the cast expires, if you're not facing directly at that little eyeball, it's going to knock you back. And there's limited space in the area, so you're going to have a really bad time if you do get knocked back. And you can get knocked off the platform, and Heroic Leap is really buggy whenever you try and jump back on. I would recommend just make sure that if that happens, just spam charge as soon as you can, or intercept, actually. Spam that as soon as you can, as soon as you see yourself get knocked back, or you realize what's happened. So you want to be controlling those eyes as much as possible, and besides that little thing that they do, the little like stare thing, that's the same as Vault of the Wardens, they don't really do anything else. They have very, very minor health, and actually they can be a good thing because they allow you to get more victory rushes. On top of that, there are the nether, what are they called, like the nether talon things? I'm trying to remember what they're called, like nether fiends, just give me 1 second. Nether horrors. The nether horrors that spawn, and they spawn in groups of 4, and they basically have 2 different abilities. I think they might have another ability if you're another type of tank, but for Prot warriors, they have their normal melee attacks, and they also have this Psi Talon ability, where each time they hit you with it, increases the damage that you take from that, and also from other, I think it's Shadow or like Frost abilities at the same time. So you want to kill those as fast as possible. On top of that, the Inquisitor spawns, which is the main boss that you mostly need to deal with. Now, he does 3 main things. First thing is he has an aura around him, and it's very obvious. It's like a death and decay. For every second or so, I think it's every 4 seconds that you stand in that aura, you gain a stack of a debuff, and each stack of that reduces your maximum total health by 8%. So that means that you can't just sit there and tank him down and kill him, because you're just going to lose enough of your health. And he also casts an ability called Mind Rend. I believe that's what it's called. Let me just check one more time. Mind Rend. And each time he casts that on you, it hits for a little bit over 2 million damage. So basically the idea here is that you're going to be trying to move out of that circle, do damage to him, then move out of that circle, and then kill the other ads, kill the eyes, deal with the infernals, and I'll talk about those in just a minute. And then after the debuff expires, you're going to move back in and damage him down again. Now, this also becomes a lot more difficult whenever you add in the infernals. The infernals really only do one thing. They do pulsing AoE damage, but it's very, very minimal. If you're getting killed by that, you're definitely not ready for this challenge. The next thing they do is a smash. Now, they do 2 different versions of this smash. They do the long range smash, which is very easy to see, and they also just do a casted smash. One of them has a ground effect and one doesn't. I don't know if this is a bug or not, but the main thing that you need to realize is always be paying attention to the infernals, and most basically like be moving in a circle. around them and around whatever you're fighting. That way you don't really have to actively pay attention to the infernals. One of the real bits of difficulty that comes out of this encounter is having to deal with so many other things that are happening at the same time. You have the Inquisitor that's doing huge amounts of damage to you. You have him also casting life drain or drain life, which needs to be interrupted, and you can interrupt that through a number of different ways. I'm going to be using Shockwave. Many other people use Stormbolt, but the way that I'm playing this, I feel like Shockwave is better, and because I don't have other good DPS legendaries, I felt like I needed the extra survivability or extra damage so I could survive through phase 1. Now, you can't just turtle all the way through phase 1 as well, because the longer that you're in phase 1, the more infernals spawn, and the infernals make phase 2 even more difficult. If you're going into phase 2 with any more than 3 infernals, it's probably going to be a wipe. So basically, to recap, you're going to be dealing with the Inquisitor. You're going to make sure that you don't interrupt Mind Rend. Save your interrupts, and the Inquisitor can be stunned, by the way. That's why Shockwave is also very important. You're going to be basically just tanking the Mind Rends, and on top of that, you can outrange those. That's very important to remember, too. So if you're in a position, especially at the beginning, where nothing's really up and you just want to minimize damage, you can run about 40 yards away from the Inquisitor, and that's going to prevent him from doing that next cast, and it's going to buy you a little bit of extra time to maybe let your debuff expire, or to let the ad spawn so you continue getting victory rushes, or whatever other reason. So it is possible to outrange the Inquisitor. So basically, you're going to be doing as much damage as possible in burst to the Inquisitor, while also AoEing down the nether horrors at the same time, avoiding the smashes from the infernals, killing the eyes, and making sure that you're faced towards them whenever they cast their gaze, and whenever the gaze actually expires, the cast time is over. And if you don't, it's not really the end of the world, but it's still very important. And that's pretty much it. That's phase 1. Now, on top of that, Valen, you have 2 other NPCs that are with you. There's Valen and Corvus. Valen is going to put down these healing orbs that are all around the room. Now, you want to use those healing orbs very, very tactically. What the healing orbs do is they do 2 things. They heal you to full health, and they also disorient all of the mobs, including bosses, in the entire room for about 4 to 5 seconds. So that means what you want to do is you want to use those healing orbs as an oh shit button, obviously, or you could also use them as a way to interrupt casts. Because of how offensively I was playing, I was halfway saving the healing orbs for whenever the Inquisitor would cast Drain Life. The more healing orbs that you can go into phase 2 with, the better, but I would recommend, at least if you have 1 or 2, you're going to be pretty much fine depending on your gear and depending on your skill. So phase 1 is mostly ad management and being able to kill those ads and burst damage and being able to micromanage all of those different things happening at the same time. It's very, very frantic, very difficult, and that's where 95% of my wipes were on. Phase 2, after you kill Inquisitor, the eyes despawn, the infernals do not, and neither do the nether horrors. Kruul comes down, and you have to burn down Kruul. Kruul has a number of different abilities that are very important. He casts these little purple lines that push you back. Make sure that you're not getting pushed back by 2 purple lines at the same time, as it's impossible to walk through them. If you're only getting pushed back by 1 purple line at a time, you can walk through it, but usually at the beginning, what I would try to do is just walk around them and just circle around Kruul. And making a circle around Kruul does 2 different things. Obviously, it allows me to handle those different orbs that push me back more easily, and also on top of that, it allows me to focus more on my damage and not having to worry about the infernals doing the knockback, because anytime they would cast it, because I'm consistently moving in a circle, it would never actually cast and hit me by the time that the cast was actually finished. So that's my recommendation for Kruul, but there are a number of other things he does that are very important. He also does a Nether Stomp. The Nether Stomp, he jumps to you, and he puts this green circle on the ground. It does 1.5 million ticking damage every second, and it also slows you. That's what you want to save your Heroic Leap for, and you want to get out of that as fast as possible. If you don't have Heroic Leap up, you want to do whatever you can. You might need to burn a big cooldown in order to stay alive through that, unless you can run right inside one of Valen's healing orbs that's still up. On top of that, he casts another ability called Twisted Reflection. Twisted Reflection is spell reflectable, and you need to spell reflect this. The reason you're going to spell reflect it is Twisted Reflection, every single time that a mob melees you and you have Twisted Reflection on you, which means that if it's on you or on Kruul, it goes this way, it restores 5% of the attacker's health. So if Kruul gets this cast off on you, it's a wipe. It's done. It's over. And it's a 45 minutes debuff, and you're going to probably get 2 of them throughout the fight. So it's not just one and forget about it. You're going to get 2 of these debuffs throughout the fights. So this also allows you to make sure that your followers will probably not die. So Corvus is going to be meleeing him, and also Valen is going to be meleeing them, and it seems like the debuff heals them as well. So that's why you want to make sure you reflect that. It's also interruptible, but you want to save your spell reflect for that at the beginning. So save your first spell reflect. You can probably use it 2 more times, and then he'll probably cast Twisted Reflection again. The last ability that he casts is called Annihilate. Is it called Annihilate? I'm pretty sure it is. Let me see if it is real quick. I want to make sure so I don't mess this up. Yes, Annihilate. Annihilate is a dot that, or not a dot, it's an ability that he casts on you, and each time he casts it on you, it does 130% more damage. So the first time it's very, very minimal damage, and obviously it's 130% more, 260% more, 360, or 390% more, so it ramps up in damage very fast. This is also an ability that you can block, and blocking it reduces the damage by a significant amount. It's very similar to Dark Slash that King Yimron does, or I think it's called Vengeful Shear that the boss in Blackrook Hold does. So you want to make sure that you have block up, shield block, or Neltharian's Fury, and I'll talk about how to use that in just a minute. You want to make sure that you have one of those up, and probably towards the end of it, both of those up. Well, actually, Neltharian's Fury makes the other one completely redundant, but you want to make sure that you have a block up for whenever he casts that, as well as another cooldown, especially on the 3rd and the 4th ones, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So for Kruul, basically you're going to be rotating him around the room, trying to have cooldowns up for Annihilate, making sure that you don't get knocked off the platform with the Infernal, cleaving down to Nether Horrors that will continuously spawn, which is good, by the way, because they're going to be very easily killable, and they're going to give you victory rushes, so you don't need to hit the orbs. You can also use the orbs to interrupt his Annihilate cast. It's about a 1 or 2 second cast, but that's not going to prevent him from casting it. That will just make him cast it again after the stun or the disorient is over, because both of the bosses are stunnable. So that's basically what we're going to be going into this fight with. That was a lot to talk about, I'm sure, and if you stuck with me this long, you probably actually are going to kill the fight. So what I want to do now is I want to show you guys, and also you're going to use your second potion and Drums of Fury as soon as Kruul goes down. That's the burn phase, because ultimately it's kind of a DPS race to kill Kruul before Annihilate stacks too high. Whenever Kruul casts Annihilate, because he casts it on a timer, if he casts it and you're not in melee range, he will automatically cast it on Corvus, which is actually a good thing. So you can have Corvus tank at least one of the Annihilates, and it makes the second phase extremely easy. That's what I did in this fight, and you guys will see how that works as I go through it. So I want to go ahead and play the clip for you guys, and I'm going to take you guys through everything. So as you just saw, I got my food buff right there. I've got my flask on, I've got Inspiring Presence because I'm a fucking moron, and I'm pretty much good to go. So Inquisitor is going to come up here, and again, you can also use, I'll show you guys how this works, but I'm going to be using Shockwave to stun Inquisitor's casts, and it helps me out a lot. So as soon as Inquisitor becomes active, I'm going to go ahead and pre-pot, use a Prolonged Power, use Demo Shout, and also use Battle Cry, burn down Inquisitor as much as possible. Now the first eye spawn, so I'm going to be facing towards Inquisitor right now, and I'm standing in here a lot longer than I really should be. So as soon as Drain Life goes out, I'm going to jump and I'm going to immediately hit this first orb here. Now, I'm playing this extremely offensively because I did it so many fucking times and I was like, do or die, let's go ahead and get this over with. So I immediately killed that eye there, which gave me a victory rush, and then I got all 4 of the Nether Horrors together. I got them on top of the Inquisitor. I stunned the Inquisitor with Shockwave as well as the Nether Horrors, which means that it's going to have a reduced duration, and then I'm going to go back and damage as much of Varus as possible, and I use Shockwave also to stop the Mind Rend cast. After that, I go back out, I kill the eye, I'm killing this other eye right here, and my health is very low. I'm going to try and survive this one right here. I went to the Infernal, which takes a lot of extra damage, and I used that as a victory rush. I got back on him. I'm going to use Shockwave right there to stun that ad. I used Demo Shouts and also Battle Cry again, to where I have extra damage added and also extra rage to damage down those ads. And then I damage those down with a Shockwave by CCing the Inquisitor. and then I move back out. As you guys just saw, I click the yellow orb, which interrupted his drain life cast. You cannot let that get off. And at this point, I'm basically waiting for the next set of ads to spawn while I clean up the Tormenting Eyes so they don't overwhelm me. And there's a lot of ad management in this fight, so make sure that you guys are aware of that. I'm going to go ahead and use my Victory Rush right there on the Infernal, and I'm going to go ahead and pick up all the ads. I charged in to interrupt the Mind Flay. Not the Drain Life, excuse me. And I didn't stun there for whatever reason, and I just cleaved down the ads with a Battle Cry, and that was able to kill them. I waited till Inquisitor was about to cast Mind Flay. The cast was almost over. Then I went over the circle so I could minimize the amount of damage that I'd be taking while I had the health reduction debuff from his aura. And then I'm going to be moving in just to get a little bit of extra damage on the Inquisitor because I don't know whenever the ads are going to spawn. Now this puts me in a kind of weird spot, so what I'm going to do right here, because he just cast Drain Life, is I'm going to use this to disorient him, interrupt his Drain Life cast, and then I'm going to get on all of these Nether Horrors, get a little bit of damage on them, wait for my debuffs to drop, get back on Inquisitor, pop both of my Battle Cry and also Demo Shout, and AoE down the Nether Horrors, and then CC Varus with Shockwave. It's going to stop his damage. And at this point, he's very, very low, so I think I'm going to go for a kill. I stunned him. At this point, I didn't really know what I should do, if I should go for a kill or not, but I decided that I was going to actually just go in and kill him and refresh my debuff right here. Now, as soon as Phase 2 starts, I hit that right there. The reason I hit it so early is because I had so many stacks of Varus's debuff that I would probably die if Kruul cast any sort of abilities on me, and I was in a very good position. I got lucky there because Kruul charged at me right whenever he did Annihilate, and as you can see, he cast Annihilate because I wasn't in range, and it hit Corvus, which is why she's at 60% health. And whenever he charges at you, that's the Nether Stomp, the green puddle there. So as soon as Nether Stomp goes out, I'm also moving around because I have Bear Tartar, so I was able to move out of Nether Stomp very quickly. And at this point, I'm trying to move around Kruul and rotate back and forth so the Infernals don't hit me. Also cleaving down the Nether Horrors, using Battlecry to help kill them. Second Annihilate is going out. And as you guys can see, I had Demo Shout up for that, which wasn't really a whole lot of damage. And I'm just moving around trying to kite through this. And at this point, I'm basically damaging down Kruul as much as possible. Now I'm going to be moving away from the Annihilates. The Nether Horrors are spawning again. I'm going to be CCing them as soon as possible, stunning Kruul as well. At this point, I'm anticipating a second cast. And also, I don't know if I mentioned this, but I did reflect the Twisted Reflection. I kind of forgot to say it. Second Annihilate is going out. I'm dealing with that with Shield Block, which allowed me to survive the second Annihilate right there, which is very, very minimal damage. And Twisted Reflection goes out. I cast Star Reflect. It's back on him, which is going to give me a lot more breathing room in terms of healing, and also moving away from the Infernals. And now I'm going to be doing a circle around him so the Infernals don't hit me, circling back around, doubling back around to get on Kruul. I'm in a very, very bad position right now because the Nether Horrors are on Valen. You can't let Valen die. Annihilate's going out, and I wasn't ready for that yet, so I hit that little orb to interrupt that, and also to give myself enough time. Since he was so low in health, I popped every cooldown I had available, and then I burned him down, and that's all it fucking takes. It's very, very fast, very high, very, very fast-paced, very high APM requirement, very high amount of things you have to pay attention to, very, very difficult overall. This fight is probably one of the most difficult tanking challenges that I've ever done in my entire time playing WoW, and it's fucking ridiculous, okay? The amount of things you need to focus on and everything like that is absolutely insane. So, as you guys see, that's the way that I handled it. It was a 4 or 5 minute fight, but it was extremely intense, extremely hard, and it took me a number of attempts that I don't even want to say. It was a lot. So anyway, guys, that's basically what you need to do. And so the way that I was handling the Phase 1 is very different than what I see in a lot of videos. And waiting for the ads to spawn, pulling them on top of the Inquisitor, and AoEing them down with cooldowns is arguably better, but also more risky. And the reason I took that risk is so I could minimize the amount of Infernals, because obviously I don't have the DPS legendaries for protection. So anyway, guys, that's everything that I've got to share for you guys. And also a little bonus, I forgot to mention this, I should have said this earlier. Make sure you have a Goblin Glider and you keybind it, because if you do get knocked off the platform and you're not a warrior, or even if you are, a Goblin Glider will allow you to get back on the platform, because you can use it in combat and it'll take you back on the platform, and it makes it a lot easier. So I do apologize for not mentioning that earlier. Anyways, guys, this is everything that I can tell you for how to complete the Highlords return. If there's anything that I forgot, anything that you have to add, please go ahead and share. a lot of people will be eagerly waiting to know. Anyway, guys, that's pretty much it. Thank you very much for watching, and like, comment, subscribe.